Hey everybody, it's Sharon Smith-Akinsanya. I am the CEO of the Mackenzie Group and your host of ViewPoint, Minnesota. And this is where we equip Minnesotans with access to information that you need to make Minnesota a great place to live, work, and play for all. And so today we're very excited to have two special guests joining us. We will have St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter, who will join us in the second half of the show. And he will talk about how St. Paul is responding to the COVID-19 crisis. But first, we have the Attorney General of Minnesota joining us. And he will be talking about, and that is Keith Ellison, of course, and he's going to be talking about price gouging. We're going to talk about tenants' rights, and we're going to talk about other scams that are happening to make sure that we are in a position to take care of ourselves for during this COVID-19 crisis. Welcome to the show, Keith.
You know what? I am unmuted. I can speak. I have a voice. I just want to say to everybody listening to your show, don't be muted. Speak up.
That's right. We got to speak up. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We know that you're swamped. But before we get started with our conversation, I just want to say that I know that all Minnesotans will join with me to send our deepest sympathies and condolences. You lost your mommy, and this is just terrible news. And we just want to say that we are thinking of you and that you are in our prayers.
Well, I appreciate that, and let me tell you, as I reflect on my mom, I'm just left with all the things she taught us, all the ways she told us to be resilient and be strong. When I think about my mom, I think about her smile, which was ear to ear all the time. She was a jokester. And, up until about 3-4 weeks before we lost her, she was a social worker in Wayne County in Detroit, Michigan, where she worked with juvenile offenders. And she believed in young people. And she believed in the power of restoration and things like that, and reconciliation. She was just an amazing person in many, many ways. In fact, if anybody reads the New York Times today, in fact, this very day, today, my son, General Ellison, who's a council member in Minneapolis, wrote an article that appeared in the New York Times today about the COVID impact, and talk quite a bit about his grandmother, my mother. So I commend people to read it.
Oh, absolutely. So everybody make sure you put that on your list of things to do as we are staying at home. I also, Keith, did I hear that your mom had gotten a master's degree or did something at 57 or something?
Yeah. So my mom is born and raised in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. Grew up on a farm girl, lost her father in a tractor accident when she was about 18. Went on down to Xavier, which is in New Orleans, Louisiana, where my family's from there.
Yeah.
And met my dad, and they raised us in Detroit. I got 4 brothers. There's 5 of us. And my dad had a debilitating stroke in 1995. And my mom was, a person of some maturity. And what she had been doing is running his medical office, because my dad was a psychiatrist. And so she said, look, I need to earn some better money than this. So she got her master's in social work at 57, and then just made it all work for the next 20 some years. I mean, she was 82 when we lost her. She was working. Her birthday is January 15th, just like Martin Luther King. And she was on the job on that, around that time, and went in for a surgery, got an infection, came home, wasn't feeling good, went back to the doctor. And that was my brother. My brother called me and told me that mom was in the ICU. She was on a ventilator. And then that morning we lost her. My brother's also a physician. And so he was actually at the hospital that my mother was being served at. So he was right there.
I'm glad he was there. So we are so sorry, but what an amazing woman. And it goes to show you how resilient we are. And it's never too late. Awesome. It's never too late. So.
And she had a great sense of humor, and she was super funny, and she was a great cook too.
Ooh.
And she was super good at pralines, gumbo,
Ooh,
shrimp creole,
Louisiana.
all of that stuff.
I know
You
you're going
know,
to miss her, and we are all thinking of you. We're all thinking of you. But you know what? You've been working hard, Keith, making sure that we are informed and making sure that nobody is taking advantage of this awful
right.
crisis that we're going through right now. Keith, can you just give us an overview of the things that you've been working on as it pertains to price gouging, hate crimes, tenants?
All right. Well, let me just say one thing before I go into that, and I'll make it quick.
Sure.
The inequalities that our society has and had before the COVID hit are just really inflamed and magnified now. So if you lived in an area where there was inadequate broadband and now you have to do distance learning, and maybe the family who has to do distance learning, there's one phone or one iPad, that makes the problem that much worse. So the fact that we would not invest in internet service for all Minnesotans makes this moment that much more difficult. The fact that we had a significant percentage of people still uninsured, even after the Affordable Care Act was passed, and even people who were insured, underinsured, that makes that much more difficult at the moment. The fact that we didn't invest in our stockpile, the fact that, our healthcare system is, if you can afford it, you can get good healthcare. And if you can't, then you just better hope for the best. All these problems were exacerbated. People are surprised. Why is this hitting the Black community harder? Same reason that cancer hits the Black community harder. Same reason that breast cancer hits harder. Same reason that prostate hits harder. Same reason that diabetes and hypertension hit harder. Everything hits harder. So all this is happening within an economy, within a society where we believe that profit seeking is the only important thing and everything else really doesn't matter. That has been the prevailing belief. And so we are now paying for it severely. So getting down to what I'm up to. What I've been doing is the following: protecting people's ability to afford their lives. How? Well, when retailers try to jack up essential items, whether it be hand sanitizer, respirator masks, food like beef or rice, if it goes up more than 20% within a 4-week period, that's price gouging. If they have an explanation, like their wholesale costs went up, we'll listen to it. We're not trying to get, but if they're just trying to, do pandemic profiteering, we keep taking them to court, and we've taken a lot of them to court. And we're investigating many more, including Menards. And it's not just the small ones, it's some of the big ones too. We've also seen a spike in hate crimes. So when Trump goes around talking about the Chinese virus, some of the latent racism that was just right below the surface, maybe sometimes on the surface, now it's popping out.
Right.
And people who might not even be Chinese, they might be Hmong or Korean or Vietnamese or whatever, some of them have been beat up, given hateful notes, things like that. We're going to prosecute this. We're not going to tolerate this. And then, there's been the online scammers. Now that the stimulus checks are coming out, we're getting reports where people are saying, people are getting cold called and told, oh, if you give me your social security number, I'll make sure you get your check today. All you gotta do is, and just give me your number. Don't do that, folks. It ain't gonna work like that. It does not work like that.
No.
If somebody cold calls you, they're a scammer. And then there's been a lot of online and computer scams. So because we have weakened the consumer protection of our country, the scammers, the crooks, and the bad guys and the bandits have a freer range to roam. And so we are responding. We've also had to deal with a lot of employers who, we understand that if you have to lay some people off during the pandemic, that's horrible. We don't like it, but we understand that's why we have increased unemployment insurance benefits. But if you didn't pay people their last check before the pandemic, that's different. And you have a legal obligation to do it. You're not going to get away with it by saying pandemic. No, you got to pay them.
Right.
And we're going to require you to do so. So those are some of the things going on. What we really want, we don't want to get after anybody. We don't like having to file lawsuits. But we will do it if it's required to. And but by the way, Sharon, it's not me. It's the customers.
Right.
We had 1,200 separate complaints regarding price gouging. And now today I got somebody calling me saying, oh, well, some people are complaining that some business people complaining about you going after them for price gouging. I'm like, well, then stop price gouging.
Right.
Because there's many, many more ethical business people, landlords, and everybody else than there are bad ones. So that was just a little bit. I got plenty more to share.
Well, Keith, can you talk a little bit about tenants' rights and evictions, what the rules are right now? What do we need to know about that?
Here's the rules. If they can't kick you out now, there's a moratorium on eviction.
Okay.
But I've had to take some landlords to court because they're like, well, I might not be able to get a court date to throw you out, but I'll just push you out by turning off all your utilities.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, they've done it, and we've taken them to court, and if we find them, we're going to get after them. We're not going to let this happen. One family, and people might think this is something happening in North Minneapolis. No, this is all over the state.
Okay.
Sandstone, Minnesota. One guy says there's a family who's not even late on their rent, but he thinks he can get more from another tenant. So he tries to say he's going to come in no matter what. The family says, no, we have a sick daughter who has a medical condition making her with a reduced autoimmune system. So we really can't let anybody in during this time.
Right.
He says, this is my property and I'll come in if I want to. Literally pushes his way in. They managed to get him to leave after they say the problem and they complain and they call the police and everything. He leaves, then turns off their utilities. In this kind of cold, because it's been snowing the last few days.
Exactly.
So he got a visit from the Attorney General's office. And we're taking him to court. We got a temporary injunction against him, and he's going to be sorry he did what he did. And then he turns around and says, well, the government's response to the pandemic is a communist takeover. I'm like, this guy just doesn't have any compassion. Then there was another person in a little town called Cosmo, Minnesota, and he was trying to say, well, I'm going to turn off your water until you pay me money. You can't do that. That's a problem whether there's a pandemic or not.
Right.
So I just want to let people know, call the Attorney General's office. You can call me at 651-296-3353, 651-296-3353, and we want you to give us a call if there's a problem. We just want you to, if you're a landlord, if you're a small business person, we want you to succeed. We want to see you make it. We know that there's some problems with the SBA. The money is a little slower. They're starting to run out, actually. And we know they need to respond more. But I just want to let you know that everybody understands that this is a tough time. Please don't try to put somebody out in the street. Please don't charge people more than the product is really supposed to go for. Because the first person to complain on you is going to be your customer, your employee, or your tenant. And if they complain to us, and if we find you violated the executive orders of the law, you're going to get a visit that you're not looking for.
And we are so glad that you're on the job. I wanted to let everybody know that those numbers that Keith, his phone number, as well as the website and email, all of that is going to be on the Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page, and it's also in the chat. We will be aggregating all of the information and the links to the forms that if you have a complaint to fill out, all of that will be on our Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page. And you can also go to the AG's website as well, but we're aggregating it all in one place for this show so that you can get to it if you have a question or you need to get a hold to the AG right away. So, let me ask you a question, Keith. What is going on with, well, we had some we had a couple questions before the show. People knew you were going to come on, and they asked me, said, Sharon, I'm a small business owner. I just have one little duplex, and the rent that I get pays my mortgage.
Of course.
How is the AG thinking about that if people can't pay me? Like, how should I be thinking about it as I don't have a big apartment complex. I just have small little place, and the rent pays my mortgage. How should I be thinking about it?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to that person for asking that question. It's a good question. And I recognize that people like this caller provide housing to people who need it. It's a service. It's important to have that available. What I'm recommending is you got to call the department, call the Small Business Association, call DEED. Support efforts like increasing unemployment insurance, support efforts like getting your tenants their stimulus checks, support these critical kind of things that we're doing so that people can get the money. I think that it's a good idea to have a rent fund by the legislature and the federal government, that people who need the money can go to the rent fund and then be able to pay their rent. And I know a lot of landlords are supporting these kind of efforts. There are a lot of citizens who've been raising this issue, but understand this, we care about the small landlords as well, because we know that, you know, you didn't just come out of your pocket to buy that apartment building. You borrowed the money to buy that apartment building, and you need those rents to pay the mortgage, or you're going to be in foreclosure. We get that, we recognize that, but if you need more specific help than what I'm sharing right now, call the AG office and we'll try to walk you through it. We don't think you're the bad guy. We recognize you got problems that you're trying to deal with. But let me just share this with you too. If you, let's just say you were to have to evict somebody because they couldn't pay you, which is your right as a landlord. Now that person goes to a shelter. They're now going to be in close confines with other people. And then they're increasing the likelihood that they're going to transmit the virus.
Yeah.
Now, that's part of the problem. It's not just because we want to be, you know, yes, it is because we're compassionate to people who are out of work and can't pay their rent. But it's also related to the virus. Once you bunch people in tight confines, that's a recipe for spreading that virus.
No question.
Yeah.
So Keith, we just got another question. So what do you know about this? We heard that there was a position, or this caller or this viewer heard that there was a petition granted for boat and dock owners to open for business. Have you heard anything about that? And so the question is, what does it look like for barbers and salons? Can they figure out a way to open up if they practice socially distanced? What do you know about any of that?
Well, I can tell, here's what I'll tell you. Now, you mentioned the first thing. It sounded like you said boat and dock owners.
Boat and dock owners.
Like a boat on the water?
Yeah.
Well, now, see, I got to tell you that I'd have to look at the order to verify that.
Okay.
I know what professions you can do, and I know what people can do, but some specific things I need to look at. But what I can tell you is that it is lawful for you to go outside and walk around. You can go running. You can do a lot of things that are outside. That's not unlawful. You can go hunting and fishing. There are other things that the order allows you can do. You should socially distance when you do it. At this point, the businesses that have people congregating are still ordered closed.
Yeah.
But I can assure you that the governor is looking at these things every single day to figure out how we can safely open up businesses, right? And the order is now the shelter in place is until the May 4th, and it is a hardship on folks, and I really do feel for our small businesses that are going through this. The problem is that we need to start to get that curve going down. We need to start having the deaths go down and the cases go down, and then we can gradually begin to open up again. And I think that if you're a barber, you know, think about, you know, making a proposal. Say, look, if I wear a mask and I wear gloves, can I start cutting hair and doing hair again? Maybe you can. This is the kind of thing we need to start proposing. Don't just go do it, because then you're going to be violating the order.
Right.
But start to think about how we can do it, because nobody likes the economy shut down.
No.
This is tough on everybody. This is actually quite bad on everybody. And we need to be opened up again, but we can't have literally thousands and hundreds of thousands of people dying because we're ignoring this virus. This virus will not be ignored. This virus is going to do what it does.
Oh, it is deathly, and it is killing each other. So, I mean, with all of this, we have to remember that we only have ourselves to help protect this. We have to be physically distant, and we have
we don't have a vaccine yet.
We don't
have a therapy yet.
We don't.
Our vaccine is social distancing.
Right.
And so I would recommend that people, you know, here's how I roll, man.
Yeah. I got mine too. I got 2 or 3 of them. I rotate.
But how do you like mine? Do you think
I love it. I think it looked good on you too, Keith.
See?
I got one on the way with bling.
Bling. Well, you do not have to sacrifice fashion, right?
You can't sacrifice fashion. You know I can't sacrifice fashion. So listen, Keith, we got a couple more questions before I let you get out of here. So rent vouchers, putting money into tenants' hands does not guarantee that rent is being paid. What is that all about? Somebody wants to know, do we have rent vouchers or how's it working?
Well, look, there's what they're saying is when citizens get money like in the stimulus check, they can spend the money on whatever they need to. And, so that's what that person is concerned about. They want a check just for them to get rent. And what I would say is that, we are concerned about you. It's important, but people got to buy groceries and they got to buy medicine. And so I would favor just the stimulus check because people need to do what they got to do. But people do have an obligation to pay rent. They're still responsible for it. The reality is that what are you going to do when a third of people can't pay?
Right.
Or a fourth. And by the way, you know how these things are going to work. It's not going to be a third everywhere.
Right.
In certain neighborhoods going to be 70, 80%. In some other neighborhoods, they ain't going to risk any rent payments. I guarantee you, there won't be too many rent payments missed in the North Loop.
Yes.
But there will be a lot of them missed in the North Side, in the South Side, and in Rondo.
Exactly.
So these things they're gonna hit concentrated in certain places. We do need some sort of a rent bridge program. We need it. There's no question in my mind. What I would say to the caller is, rather than say, I don't care, just give me my check, help lobby the legislature to get enough money so that everybody can survive this.
Absolutely.
And I'll just say this to you, Sharon. It's natural for people to be concerned about themselves in a moment like this, but also try to consider your neighbor.
Right.
This is an important time to think about other people.
Absolutely.
And a lot of business people have done this. I mean, I can tell you, the folks over there at 3M, they're trying to keep the price of the mask down.
Right.
Somebody come trying to sell me a $5 respirator mask, something that costs, barely $1. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's price gouging in my opinion.
Yeah, it is.
And yet some people are trying to do the right thing. So anyway.
Have you heard anything about there being an order or a requirement for everybody to wear masks? Like we've been going into supermarkets and grocery stores where they don't have on masks, but we have on masks. So CDC is recommend. So why aren't we see more workers in the supermarkets and stores wearing masks? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I think that this is something that we're relying on state epidemiologists and health department to give us advice on this. I wear them, and you wear them.
Yeah.
And other people wear them, but at this point, it has not been made a legal requirement to do so. But I would say that it is a good practice, and I would recommend people do it.
Absolutely, we're gonna pop St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter on.
Is that my friend?
Yeah, he's coming. Hold on. We're going to get him on here.
You look like you know how to work that machine pretty well.
Hey, I'm working on Hey, Mayor Carter.
Mr. Attorney General, how are you guys doing?
What's up? From the great city of St. Paul, the one, the only, Melvin Carter.
I appreciate you. It's good to see you, and I appreciate your leadership, Mr. Attorney General.
Yeah, likewise. How you doing, man?
Same as everybody. We're working hard. I have a 6-week-old in the house, so she tries to. She's reclaiming her time as well.
She's reclaiming her time.
And so we're doing good. We're making
it. We all got to deal with a new set of coworkers, like the 6-week-old and the cat and the dog and the, the doorbell.
That's right. They all make cameos on my teleconferences these days.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, without a doubt. Without it, I just had to ask everybody to do their homework at a different table because they kept shaking the table and my camera was shaking. This is our new normal.
It's all real, ain't it? So, Attorney General Keith Ellison, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today and let everybody know in the state of Minnesota what to look out for in terms of tenants' rights, price gouging, and answer a few questions for us. We really appreciate you. And I just want to let everybody know that the AG is making his rounds on all different medias, to try to different segments of our population, Mr. Attorney General, and keep fighting for us.
Will do, Sharon. Thank you, and thanks for the kind words about my mom. And Brother Melvin, Mayor Carter, you take care.
Good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Carter.
Sharon, how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, and you know, just like, it's like you said, just like everybody else. And I just wanted to check in with you to see how the family is doing. You got a whole Brady bunch, and you got a brand new baby, and everybody's in the same situation. Just so how you doing?
That's right. We do have a Brady Bunch. It's been a challenging moment for all of us, and trying to figure out this new normal and being in this space. Ironically, with the baby on the way, we actually spent the last few months preparing to be somewhat socially distant right now, anyways.
Yeah.
And so she's prepared us a little bit. I'll tell you, between the pandemic emergency that my team is working together to manage, and the newborn at home. I've probably gotten more sleep in my life than other chapters. But I'll tell you, between my family, between just the city employees that I work with, and between just community members and businesses and people in the community, just stepping in to help me and to help each other. I'm also in the midst of this really challenging time. Very, very humbled and very, very inspired by the way people are stepping forward to help each other.
Absolutely. I agree with you. The same over here. We are continuing to, fight this fight and do everything we can to help Minnesotans stay safe by giving them good information. I'm a small business too. It's 7
That's right.
employees with a payroll that I have to make every 2 weeks. So I'm doing the same thing with the PPP and, the gap fundings and whatever else I can do, deed. And, so we're all in the same boat. And I think that it's so important to make sure that everybody knows that we're working hard as leaders, but everybody's in the same boat. But I need to tell you that leadership matters, Mayor Carter. Leadership matters, and we appreciate you. So I wanted you just to spend a few minutes just to let us know, because I know you only have a few minutes, to let us know what the city of St. Paul is doing to respond to this COVID crisis. I think you have some bridge funding and things like that.
We definitely do. Over the last month or so, we've had to fundamentally rethink what the city government is and what city government is for. That started for us with an emergency declaration that I signed that said we're going to temporarily cease public-facing operations in our recreation centers, in our libraries, and some of the other public desks that the city operates. It started with us saying, wait a minute, if washing our hands is absolutely critical, we're going to suspend water shutoffs so that no one's water is going to get shut off in the midst of all of this, so that all of our families can afford to do just the simple task of washing their hands and sanitizing their surfaces, and all the things that our public health professionals are saying with us. It's evolved into saying, wait a minute, we have to continue to serve our community. We can't just fold in. And, we're seeing our libraries create kind of drop-off locations, pick up and drop-off locations, online story times, our park and rec leaders leading check-ins with their young people virtually. We just had a video online in the last couple of days where at Como Zoo, the penguins went and walked around Como Zoo and Conservatory. So, just finding different ways for our community to serve has been critical. Identifying, we spent a lot of time doing simple things that frankly we shouldn't have to worry about, like just trying to make sure we have enough masks for our firefighters and paramedics and police officers, so that we can ensure our residents that God forbid you have to call 911, we can get somebody there, and we can do it in a way that keeps our first responders safe. And yes, you mentioned our St. Paul Bridge Fund, which I'm very proud of. We have taken just over $3 million, about $3.25 million, and made it available as just emergency resource to low-income families and small businesses in St. Paul, to say, we want to make sure that they know that we stand with them. I sure wish we had a whole lot more to meet the entire need that we have in our community, but it's a good start. And I'll tell you, between the private sector partners and the philanthropy, the foundations who chipped in about $750,000, and between the just individuals on Facebook and social media who have gone on the website to chip in another about $20,000 now. It's really heartwarming to see people looking out for each other.
There's no question, it's just everybody's just chipping in. And so I just like to remind everybody that, the city of St. Paul, that bridge funding, like the mayor said, he wishes that there can be so much more, but don't forget, that you must check out, what's going on at the state level, with deed. what's going on at the county level and what's going on at the federal level with SBA. You must make sure you're keeping track of what's going on with unemployment insurance funding and what that's looking like. Stimulus checks are starting to be released and come out. So you want to make sure that you keep it locked to the Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page, because we have all of those resources aggregated on there in one spot. And yes, you can obviously go to the City of St. Paul's website as well, because we have that information. But we're trying
Is the
to
Bridge Fund on there, Sharon?
The Bridge Fund is on there as well. So we've got the Bridge Fund in the chat right here. Everybody can see it in the chat. There's a link right now in this chat, as well as on the Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page. And you can obviously go check this link out and it'll take you straight to the City of St. Paul page where that information is there. And I looked at it last night, so I was very excited.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so important, and I appreciate that. If the Bridge Fund for families is targeted at families under 40% of the area median income, that's about $40,000 for a family of four. So please get on. The application is easy. It's very simple. It's very quick. You can do it yourself in just a few minutes. And the Bridge Fund for businesses is targeted at businesses that make under $2 million in revenue per year. Same thing. It's easy. It's quick. There is no, there's no documentation or immigration status requirement associated with either one. And we're excited to get those resources moving as swiftly as possible. I thank you for providing that resource. I did not know that you have all of those resources on your website, but like during the foreclosure crisis, we saw, folks charging people for foreclosure counseling in a way that was predatory. And we want to avoid seeing those types of impacts here as well. And so, that's going to be critical as we move forward, is having that kind of network of trusted advisors, of trusted and free information to help people access not just the local aid, but the state aid, the county aid, and the federal aid that's available to us.
Absolutely. Everything is there. And I'm so glad that you said that, Mayor Carter. Trusted voices, trusted and reassuring voices. And that is what we're trying to lend, because it's so important. It's hard to know where everything is. It's click here, do this, click that. So what we're trying to do is, with the help of, our leaders like yourself, is to make sure that we're aggregating and making it as easy as possible to access the information at no charge, and really working together as a team and as a community. The governor talked about from time to time being one Minnesota, right? From Rondo to the Iron Range,
That's right.
From North Minneapolis to North Mankato, and it really needs to be like that if we're going to survive this thing. We need to show the world, what we're made of, and so we want to make sure that we have all this good information for you to access. And I'm loving this bridge loan, this Bridge Fund. I just, with everybody being able to participate and being involved, I was so excited when I saw it. So thank you I know your team has been working, 24/7 to make sure.
I've asked my team to do about 8 months of work in about 2 weeks, and they've stepped forward. And just the way people are kind of chipping in together. I was on a call this morning. We of course have thousands of applications. Our firefighters academy, our firefighter cadets are volunteering to help us sort through applications and things like that. So just the way people are chipping in, it's not a loan, it's a grant for $1,000 to families, $7,500 to businesses. And I'll say this, Sharon, it's life and death, particularly in our community. We've seen news, and I hope people have seen this, that shows that in Chicago, 72% of COVID-19 related deaths have been in the African-American community. Right. Nationwide, 1 in 3 cases. Our African-American community, I read online, represents 1 in 3 cases that are severe enough to require hospitalization. My grandmother, all of our grandmothers used to say that when America gets a cold, Black America gets the flu.
That's right.
And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing that economically as well, where of our white workforce, I saw a report by Deed yesterday that showed that 12%, I believe, of our white workforce has filed for unemployment insurance, while 26% of our people of color workforce has. So we are seeing, unsurprisingly, that crisis hit our community disproportionately. So when we talk about social distancing, when we talk about all the things that's necessary to survive this crisis, we have to understand the economic privilege that it takes to social distance, and the fact that if I live in a high-rise apartment building that only has 3 or 4 elevators with hundreds of other people or thousands of other people, it's going to be difficult for me to social distance. If I'm an hourly employee, particularly if I've been laid off, and I'm not going to be able to work and buy groceries for my children unless I go out the house to make some money, it's going to be difficult for me to social distance. So our work together to ensure that people in our community very specifically know how to access all of those aids that are important to us. It's important economically, but through those economics, we're saving lives in our community.
And thank you for that, because here's what's really happening, Mayor. This is just shining the spotlight on what was disproportionate, what the disparities were before COVID. The health disparities in the Black community was disproportionately out of whack due to systematic racism, slavery, before COVID, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, et cetera. And it's just exposing it. So, then being on the front line, it is going to tell us when we do the recap who truly is essential in this nation. When we talk about essential workers, those that we putting on the front line are healthcare workers, our bus drivers,
without a doubt,
all of those professions that you mentioned, and where you can't have the privilege of being physically distanced by working from home. And that is what is causing this disproportionate whack numbers in the Black community in Illinois, like you mentioned, in Michigan. Louisiana is off the change. About 4 days ago, and I don't know if it's still the case, 100% of the COVID deaths in my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, 100% of the deaths 4 days ago, I don't know what it is today, were Black.
That's right. And I want to be clear, we don't have data that suggests we have that level of disparity in Minnesota, but that doesn't mean we don't. That could just mean we haven't done the testing necessary to know it. That could just mean that our community hasn't had access to healthcare coverage and to healthcare services in a way to turn those kind of just illnesses in neighborhood into confirmed cases. We are seeing that all across the country. It's a trend all across the country. And, one of the conversations that I'm having with my staff, with our city council, and with the governor and our legislative partners right now, both at the state level and at the federal level, is we shouldn't wait to see that trend bear out in Minnesota before we take action, or in other places around the country, before we take action to prevent it from happening in Minnesota. We need action right now to address that trend that we can very logically predict is on its way. Martin Luther King once said, we may have come in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. And I think that's what you were talking about. I think that this virus is making it very clear that until every low-income African-American family, until every person who's experienced homelessness, until every person who's come back into our community out of incarceration, et cetera, has access to high-quality health care, has the ability to have some paid sick leave to take care of their child or to take care of themselves if they get sick, and has the ability to just go to the doctor when they don't feel well, then every accountant, every CEO, every high-income family in our community is still at risk of infection.
Absolutely. And I hope that the state of Minnesota, the governor's office, and everybody comes together to make sure that there are the resources put together to make sure that the ethnic media and those who understand how to reach communities of color, those who understand how to reach the African-American community in a culturally specific way, that they are given the resources to communicate with those communities to help us save ourselves. We need information, and we need the resources now.
That's right. And I'll tell you, our partnership with the governor has been incredible. He's been communicative. I think he's taken bold action. Nobody wants to shut down this stuff. And, I can tell everybody on this call that it's not lost on anyone the amount of economic violence, the economic toll and trauma that this is having on all of us. There are people in the Capitol, in both Washington, D.C. and in Minnesota, who aren't clear on how we should balance the value of lives versus how we should balance the value of our economy and stocks and things like that. I am really grateful that our governor has been very clear, because the truth is, unless we value our lives, unless we value our health, we won't have much, we won't have anything to rebuild. And so I've been really appreciative of the governor's bold leadership. I'll tell you, between him, myself, I was talking to Mayor Fry about this the other day. We're all taking actions we never, ever, ever would have thought we would have taken. I'm a kid who grew up in the Martin Luther King Center and playing football at Jimmy Lee. And I tell that story every single day of my life. And so nobody would expect or predict that I would make the decision to say, we are going to temporarily cease operations in our recreation centers. These are unusual times. They require unusual measures. I know this is creating a strong economic toll. That's why the city is putting in to say, here's a few $1 million to try to help people get through this moment. That's why the governor's been leading in that way. We need to all be talking to our state legislators and our federal delegation to ensure that we're focused on the crisis at hand. I saw just yesterday the president, with regard to these stimulus checks, they're holding the stimulus checks that are going to millions of Americans. The disaster relief that millions of Americans are counting on are literally holding their breath, waiting on so they can buy groceries or pay the rent. They're holding it to put the president's name on every single check. That's disgusting. It's despicable. Even by today's incredibly low standards, that's unpresidential and unbefitting of our country. So let's demand that of our leaders. Let's demand a mission-centric focus.
No question. I want to thank you because leadership matters, and I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of your leadership. And I appreciate you taking a few minutes to be with us today to make sure that we had the information that we need about St. Paul specifically, but to give the message that we all need to practice physical distancing. We know we want to get back to work, but we need to stay safe.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we do. I appreciate you helping to get the word out. Thanks to everybody who tuned into the call.
Go take care of those babies and take care of the cities and keep leading out loud.
Will do. Thank you much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
All right, everybody. We want to thank you for spending your last 45 minutes with us to learn from the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, about some of the things that he's doing to make sure that we are combating price gouging, and a little bit about tenants' rights and what else is happening from the AG's office. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions, but we have the links in chat to information that in terms of how to get a hold of the Attorney General's office, and we also will have that on our Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page as well. What we're trying to do is just to make sure you get the information that you need to keep yourself safe during this incredible, unprecedented time. And so we really apologize for not getting to all of the questions, but as much as possible, make sure that you are checking out those links so that you can do the research when you have the time to do so. We also want to say thank you to St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter for coming on and giving us information about how St. Paul is responding to COVID-19. And we have the links to the Bridge Fund and different information that he shared with us in the chat, as well as you can also find it on the Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page. So in closing, we will be here next week at 11:30, and we will continue our series on who's still hiring in Minnesota. We did this a couple weeks ago. Everybody wanted to know more. So we're going to continue that series. We're going to be focusing on the financial industry. So please be on the lookout for that information in the inbox when you register for this ViewPoint and on social media. So we are going to do everything we can to keep you informed, but keep it locked to the Ray Mackenzie Group Facebook page for more information. So thank you so much for joining us. And please remember to stay home, stay safe, and stay connected. Until next time, I'm Sharon Smith-Akinsanya.